It can often become overwhelming in knowing how to approach all of these layers.
We have the habit of leaving our body.
There are many levels of healing.
We have a physical body, but we're more than that. We have feelings, but we're more than that. We have thoughts, but we're more than that.
Energy is everything.
See what emerges. See what you feel, what you sense, what you know. Maybe something pops into your mind.
Today's show focuses not just on Reiki, but on psychic Reiki.
We're all incredibly wise beings.
One of the many ways that we are opened when receptive.
Welcome. You have entered the realm of 1111 Talk Radio. Your host is Simran. It's time to discover your own language with the universe. Empower yourself, broaden your mind, open your heart, and discover who you are. Now, here's your host, Simran.
We can get so caught up in simply the physical, but there's so much else. We really need to pull back and focus in our own energy, where we need to center and to ground, to understand that the healing of the world can very much center around the alignment and healing of ourselves. This is part of the conversation that we're going to have today. I'm excited to introduce you to a beautiful soul. Lisa Campion is a master psychic, energy healer, and author who has dedicated her life to helping people access their intuition and inner power. With over 30 years of experience, Lisa has guided thousands of clients in their spiritual journeys, combining practical tools with deep metaphysical wisdom. Welcome, Lisa, to 1111 Talk Radio. It is such a joy to have you here.
I'm super thrilled to have this conversation and to be here with you today.
It's easy to forget sometimes that we are energy beings and that there is tremendous power when we allow ourselves to tap into energy, share how we can start to focus more on the power of our energy as opposed to simply getting caught up in what the physical world wants to show us is so real.
Yeah, that's such a great place to start. It's sort of an overall awareness. So I don't know about you, but I get really lost in my mind and thinking and all the things that I have to do and my to-do list. Sometimes I feel like I just become a thought being and I forget the rest of the parts of myself. And when I tune into my energy, it's more about tuning into a deeper level of my being, what's happening in my body, what's happening with my emotions, what's happening inside my energy field, what's happening for me spiritually. And I think we all need little moments of check-in where we kind of stop and, honestly, sometimes I just put up a notification on my phone. My phone will ding it once an hour and be like, "Lisa, where are you? Like, what's going on with you?" And remind myself to do a little check-in. And then I breathe and I get in my body and I take a few breaths to clear my energy and I just tune into my feelings. We have a physical body, but we're more than that. We have feelings, but we're more than that. We have thoughts, but we're more than that. And the part that I'm interested in is in the conscious observer of the self, the part that knows we are the sum of all of those things together. I think that's the thing. What do you think?
I'm in total agreement with you, and there's something that was truly powerful I want to bring the listeners back to, and it was you setting an alarm and doing that regular check-in. And as someone who has been an empath and left her body very early, as
Yep.
many of us have that have experienced wounding or trauma, I don't know that individuals realize how out of body we live much of the time, rather than truly being present in our bodies, truly tapping into what we are feeling, what our energy is. We live in this really projection-based society where it is always this outward focus. It takes that conscious moment to bring all of that energy, those thoughts, those emotions, that focus back within to be in the body again. Talk a little bit about experience with clients in how they feel that distinction between being out of body and finding their body again, finding their sense of self again through energy work.
people always say, well, you've got to be more grounded. And for a long time, I didn't know what that meant. What does that mean? And you're right. It's like if we have the habit of leaving our body, psychologists call that dissociation. And I think when we're sensitive, if we've reached sort of empathic overload, so it happens to us when, as empaths and sensitives, when if we think about us as being psychic sponges, when the sponge is full, halfway through Costco, that's when it happens to me. And I'm just like, I'm out of my body. And we have this illusion that we're safer. And maybe we were, like, if, like you said, if we've had trauma in our lives, it's sort of our bodies, our being's natural insulation, protective mechanism against traumatic moments is to leave. So we kind of have this illusion that we're safer when we're out. And when I was young, I studied martial arts, and I quickly learned as a martial artist that you're not safer when you're out. That you've got to be in. You've got to be in, and all our power comes from when we're in our body. And that early martial arts training, I did like 20 years of it, really, really taught me to be in. I think body-based practices like yoga, tai chi, martial arts can really assist us to reverse the habit of being out. And I think that grounding is like the basic step for my energy management techniques, getting in your body, getting centering, getting in your body. And then once you're in, connecting deeply to the energy of the earth. So grounding means having your mind be in the present moment as best we can, which is always, it's got its own set of problems on doing that. Having our mind in the here and now, being actually in our body best we can, and then being connected to the earth. Those are the three things that make up grounding.
I really appreciated within your book, The Art of Psychic Reiki, how you broke down that meditation can be different things for different people, particularly for those who have had dissociation, that sometimes it is the movement and the body practices that are the best forms of meditation for them to start with. I think a lot of people have their own perspectives or perceptions around energy work or meditation, these different even physical body practices, where it creates a barrier from them fully giving themselves to it or even feeling good enough or capable of achieving states that are also parts of the projections that people put onto these things. And then everyone's climbing for something rather than immersing, engaging, and realizing it is truly meant to be a personal experience, a personal growth experience. Do you find sometimes that although people are coming for the purposes of learning Reiki and different practices on intuition and psychic ability, that it also ends up being something they want to take off and run, go do for someone else before really grounding into it and giving it to themselves?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like the most about Reiki. I think you're so right, especially as sensitives and empaths, we're givers. We're always thinking about how we can give, how we can contribute, which I think is beautiful. You know, we're here to serve humanity, and we do in so many ways. And one of the things I like the most about Reiki is that the very first thing you learn is a self-healing technique. And I've studied a lot of healing modalities over the past 30 years, and very few of them have self-healing techniques, which I think is kind of nuts. I love Reiki, especially for sensitives, for empaths, is a very beautiful primary practice, or sort of it's an entry point into the larger spiritual world that many people find themselves. I would say yoga, meditation, and Reiki are the three gateways into the larger spiritual world. They're all amazing. And what I like about Reiki is that it teaches the very first thing we have to do is like 21 or 30-day self-healing practice. I think that's beautiful. And it sort of starts balancing the equation on how much we're giving to ourselves, how much we're allowing ourselves to receive, and how much we're then able to give. Because we know we can't give from an empty cup. And yet many of us have a lot of like internal programming that say it's wrong or not spiritual or not selfish to include healing. And I know if we don't balance the scales there, we just are in a perpetual state of burnout, and that's not good for anybody.
For those that may not be familiar with Reiki or have heard the word but don't have quite the understanding of what it is, would you explain what Reiki is?
Yeah, Reiki is a very gentle but very powerful hands-on energy healing technique from Japan. Some people say it's like acupuncture without the needles. but where Reiki practitioners are trained to help to connect with a specific frequency of Reiki. That frequency is the frequency of unconditional love, which is so amazing. And then either working hands on or hands off the body can flow this energy to another person. And I started teaching Reiki 1999, so 26 years ago. And back then it was still sort of fringe and nobody knew what it was. Now it's really part of the mainstream. So there are over 800 hospitals here in the United States that have full-time Reiki practitioners as part of their staff. Been widely studied scientifically and recognized as a powerful healing technique that works on the physical body, the emotional, mental, spiritual parts of ourselves. It's used in pain clinics around the world as non-narcotic pain relief. You know, I live in New England and we have some of the best hospitals, arguably, in the world in Boston. And almost all the big Boston hospitals have full-time Reiki staff. So it's
That
really
is amazing
isn't that cool?
it's in hospitals as much as it is. I remember when
Yeah.
I learned Reiki about 2 decades ago, it was,
Yep.
especially here in the South, it's not something that you would ever hear of in hospitals. So it's so beautiful that consciousness has expanded. And
Yeah.
you have written on something that I had not been familiar with before as far as the term, and that is psychic Reiki. So now what is the distinction between Reiki and psychic Reiki?
It's something that I made up, really. It's like my version of Reiki training. And, I started working as a psychic when I was 19. So that was kind of my first orientation as a healer. And then I studied therapy and became a therapist. And for a long time, I blended those together. So I was teaching psychic development for many years and I was teaching Reiki. And I noticed that people would take my Reiki classes, people would take my psychic development classes, and they would everybody would take everything. And those two practices really came together because, like I said, yoga, Reiki, meditation are sort of the gateways into the larger spiritual world. And a lot of times what happens when we do those things, when we start meditating, we start studying Reiki or we do some meditation, it opens up our natural latent psychic abilities. So if you have that, if you're an empath, you may suddenly become aware of how sensitive you are. If you have psychic abilities, they may pop to the surface. I think that's a beautiful thing because as healers, having access to our intuition and our psychic ability in a healing session is a really, really powerful part of our toolkit. So to me, it makes perfect sense that they go together. However, in sort of normal Reiki training or traditional Reiki training, it's not part of the Reiki training. And I was noticing that people were coming to me and saying, gosh, I got this Reiki attunement and it popped my psychic abilities wide open. And I asked my Reiki teacher what to do about it. And the Reiki teacher was like, shh, don't talk about it. That's not part of Reiki. So whatever you're doing, quit doing it. And I was like, wow, okay. So that's when I wrote my book, The Art of Psychic Reiki. It was sort of radical. It came out in 2018, and at the time it was a bit of a radical thought that maybe these things should go together. To me, it was always, of course they should go together. But I have heard from a lot of people who experienced a psychic opening when they were studying Reiki and went to their Reiki teachers and were sort of shut down hard by their Reiki teachers who just it's not part of the traditional Reiki training. And I don't think not everybody knows what to do when their psychic abilities open, but that's what I do. So to me, it made perfect sense to put them together.
It does seem to make sense. I mean, I would think that even the founder had felt his own abilities come through, and there's so many ways that we are psychic. You even discuss that in the book, The Art of Psychic Reiki, where we can sense, we can feel. Talk a little bit about some of the different ways that those psychic abilities can start to come through us.
It's so much more normal than we think it is, like if we watched a lot of horror movies or we watch psychics on TV, we can have sort of this misunderstanding. We think it's crazy or we think it's scary or we think it's really extreme. Like you fall on the floor, have fits, while you're having visions. And it's really not like that. It's so woven into the everyday experiences we have as humans. So it might be something or you feel or you sense. It might be the strong impression you get when you meet somebody for the first time. It's a really common psychic experience, or intuitive experience where we're like, oh, have a really strong feeling about that person I just met. Or you might not know why you know something, but you just do. Like, I knew that was going to happen. It might be that little voice in your head that's like, take your umbrella, it's going to rain later, or don't take the highway today, take the back roads. It's kind of those. It seems like it couldn't be that ordinary or that normal. Maybe you have dreams, like, prophetic dreams, or you dream about something and then it happens. It might be like really strong sensations you have in your body that are giving you. So it's our physical sensations, our feelings, our knowing, sort of what our heart is telling us, that little voice in your head or what you're seeing, that those are the psychic senses or the clairs. They're so normal and they're so interwoven into our everyday experience that I think a lot of people dismiss that when they're having a psychic experience. They're like, oh, that's nothing special. That happens to me 10 times a day.
And everyone has these psychic abilities. They may be latent, they may have been shut down, but we all have the ability. It's a matter of them just being opened up.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I called my book Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, because I really feel like it's an ability like musical ability, like athletic ability. Everyone has some, and we know when we see like a professional musician or professional athlete, we know they worked at it. They didn't just, even if they were born with a lot of talent, they still put a lot of work into it. And that's what we need to do if we want to maximize our psychic ability. We have to study. We have to work it a little bit. It's like a muscle we have to use. And when we do, we can bring whatever we have to its maximum potential.
Now, is there a distinction between the intuitive nature, psychic ability, and mediumship?
Yeah, such a great question. So intuition is our inner knowing. I think it comes from our higher self, like our deep inner guidance. Like, we're all incredibly wise beings, aren't we? We have our personal knowing about things, and that's intuition. And largely we're getting that through our physical body, what you're feeling in your body, what your emotions are telling you, like I have a good feeling or bad feeling about that, in the inner knowing. And when those things come together and they all agree, that's something you should really, really, really pay attention to. That's a strong intuitive hit. Psychic is a little different. Psychic is when we get information from outside of ourselves. And I've been doing psychic readings for a long, long time. And when I do psychic readings for people, I see that we all have a team of spiritual advisors, spirit guides, spirit allies, whatever you want to call them. Angels, it could be your grandma who passed away. It could be the angels that are around you. It could be if you're masters, prophets, and saints, and they are advising us. And so psychic is when we receive information from outside of ourselves. And that might be about your future or about past life that's coming to light, or precognition, that kind of thing. And mediums are psychics who specialize in talking to people who have crossed over. They're talking to our beloved to have passed, or people who need a little help with their transition.
Thank you for that. I always like to caution, particularly if I have newbies to the spiritual world and personal growth, I always like to bring up some of the cautionary places to look at so that the focus and the devotion to oneself remains as pure as possible. There are times that individuals are drawn to these things because they want to do the tricks. They want to have those types of experiences to say, this is what I can do, as opposed to the reverence for energy or the reverence for and the responsibility for psychic ability and our intuition, so that individuals can really hold the sacredness of these gifts, that they cherish them internally for a bit before they just want to throw them out as something to display.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And there's so many angles on that. I think part of what you're saying is that it's really good to practice ethics. So, as psychics, if you're sort of new and all of a sudden you're knowing things about people or you're sensing things about people, we really need to have good ethical response. We have an ethical responsibility to how we present that information. My rule is a very strong rule that I have for myself personally and that I teach my students, is that we don't share our psychic information without permission. And that's not what you're going to see on TV, like if you watch psychics on TV. And we have to remember that the TV's staged, it's there for our entertainment. It's not good to learn your psychic ethics from watching paranormal shows or that kind of thing. We need to ask permission. If you have something you want to share with somebody, you ask, is it okay if I share this with you? We make sure we're not sharing fears. Make sure we plant good seeds.
Reiki is an extraordinarily intuitive healing modality. The best Reiki practitioners allow their intuition and their psychic ability to guide the session. Many of the books and classes about Reiki have missed the connection between the practice of Reiki and an increase in intuitive and psychic abilities. This kind of opening is very natural, but it can be shocking for many practitioners. With greater awareness comes greater responsibility. Lisa is a master in this domain and has guided thousands on how to open their intuition in a healthy and safe way. Lisa Campion is a master psychic, energy healer, and author who has dedicated her life to helping people access their intuition and inner power. With over 30 years of experience, Lisa has guided thousands of clients in their spiritual journeys, combining practical tools with deep metaphysical wisdom. She is the author of best-selling books, The Psychic Awakening Journal, Awakening Your Psychic Ability, Energy Healing for Empaths, and The Art of Psychic Reiki. Her mission is to support empaths, sensitives, and those awakening to their spiritual path in navigating life with clarity, confidence, and compassion. You can find out more at lisacampion.com. That link is in the bio description, along with her book. Receive the 1111 Collective on Substack. Click the link in the bio description below and join us. Become an annual subscriber or a Master Founder member and start to also receive 1111 Magazine on audio. It is an honor and a privilege to have you there. We'll be right back after these messages.
Simran is an award-winning author, publisher of 1111 Magazine, powerful speaker of wisdom, and a life mentor. Find out more at IamSimran.com. Now, back to 1111 Talk Radio.
I want to mention my new trilogy. I hope that you will pick it up. It is titled Living the 7 Blessings of Human Experience, which goes into your personality, identity, and the part of you that you think is conscious but is actually walking unconscious in the world. The second book is Being, the 7 Illusions that Derail Personal Power, Purpose, and Peace. This goes into the illusions that we have gotten caught up in, like time, money, hierarchy, war, even identity. And you are allowed to go into places that rise you to a higher octave of being once you discover these low vibrational unconscious selves. And the third book is Knowing, the 7 Human Expressions of Grace, ways that you can rise into giving yourself the graces that are required to open up to higher and higher grace. I invite you to pick that up and open it as oracles while you read any other books, and it definitely will support you in tapping into places that you may have deeply repressed or hidden away from yourself. So check that out. Lisa Campion has made a valuable connection between Reiki training, intuition, and psychic ability. Many people who dive into the world of Reiki find themselves opening up to their psychic selves and can feel lost. She has bridged these two worlds in a way that will help those on the path of Reiki to fully step into their potential as healers. Let's learn a little bit more about Reiki. Not just Reiki, but psychic Reiki, intuition, and all things energy.
New psychics, they're really hitting the astral plane. And when we're reading the astral plane, we're reading people's hopes and fears, not actually what might happen. So it doesn't mean it's the truth with a capital T. We have to remember that we are only seeing probabilities, possibilities. Nothing is set in stone. No psychic is 100% accurate. And we need to be very mindful of how what we say impacts and influences people and what if we're wrong. So I think it's an extremely important rule to live by.
I appreciate all of that guidance because I think we're at a time in the world right now where awakening is expanding to such great degrees, and it seems almost in line with the degree of fear that's out there as well. And so it's easy for people to become followers as opposed to grounding into their own inner authority and remembering what is true and right and aligned for themselves. And in the book, you share the ethical principles for Reiki by Usui Sensei. Can you share what those four are?
Yeah, it's to not, just for today, do not anger, to, treat your elders with respect, to earn your living honestly, and to show gratitude for everything. And, I still live in Japan. So when I was a martial artist, I spent a lot of time living in Japan studying in a Japanese dojo. And every dojo has their principles printed on the wall. And Usui Sensei, he was a Buddhist monk, and he also had a meditation practice in a meditation school. And those were his principles. Do not anger, honor your elder, be respectful for your elders, be grateful, and do your work honestly. Those are such incredible principles to live by. I think not just for Reiki, but for the entire world.
They
Or
are.
anything we're putting our mind to, right?
Yes, yes, I totally agree. And that if everyone in the world just did that, we'd
I
be in a
know.
little bit of a different place. And with those
Yeah.
in mind, what does it mean to be a healer then? Because that's another place where I also can see sometimes there's levels of codependence, or there's
Yeah.
areas where people feel a certain, some feel a certain arrogance, some feel a certain dominance, some feel a certain power over, as opposed to others that feel as if they're stewards or if they're representatives or they're conduits. So talk about what it really means to be a healer.
Yeah. And I think that I learned that my ethics and sort of my stance as a healer from studying, going to school and becoming a therapist. So my standards are more along that sort of professional line. And I like to think about it as being a midwife, where as healers, we're midwives. The midwife doesn't have the baby for you. You're having your own baby, but it's really hard to have a baby without a midwife. So spiritual midwifery is a really good way to think about it, to kind of keep us out of that codependency. Like, I'm not unless I can totally fix you, I'm not a good healer. That's a trap that a lot of people fall into, that fosters a kind of codependency, or the power trip. Like, if we fall into that ego trap, then if we healed somebody and all this healed, air quotes around that, and they're not okay the next day, then it's our fault. If we take the praise, we also have to take the blame. And that midwife analogy reminds everyone whose responsibility is the healing really falls to. As a client, as a spiritual seeker, it's always our responsibility for our own healing. And we project that on our healers. We want people to save us, rescue us. And if you're a healer that still hasn't quite mastered the ego or power trap, then you can be like, I healed you. Then you're stuck with the blame if it doesn't go right. And I think that we also need to remember that healing is a process, that just like therapy is, it's not a one and done solution. There's no magic bullets. There's no one easy answer that's going to miraculously heal every single thing so you can cycle off the planet. That, I mean, maybe we have moments, miracles like that once in a while, but the truth is it's a lot of hard work. And we have to work as spiritual seekers and humans searching for wholeness. We need to be responsible for our healing. We need to maintain our sovereignty, our power. We need to really understand that it takes many, 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 many lifetimes, never mind some good elbow grease and hard work in this lifetime, that we have to work on ourselves, our physical being, our mental being, our emotional being, our spiritual being, and all of that just takes place. And when we move too quickly through the stages of that, we can often overbalance ourselves, fall into a spiritual crisis. We go a little crazy. We have a little nervous breakdown. We can make things worse if we try to go too quickly and we don't honor timing. I really, really trust that every individual has a timing that works. We need to not rush past that. We need to be very mindful of, we're working with people in an altered state, especially when we're doing energy healing work. They're in a hypnotic state, and we need to be really super careful of what we say, planting only good seeds. and not working beyond the scope of our practice. Unless you've been trained to do trauma informed work with people, don't do that. don't don't claim things you can't do. Don't try to do things you can't. And I see a lot of newbie psychics and energy healers attempt to do things they don't have the experience or training for.
And healing can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes healing is a healing of the issue, and other times healing is the release of the body and a place of peace in that way too. So
Absolutely.
I think that might be part of the way that
Yeah.
Reiki and different healing modalities do support our personal growth. It's part of the release of attachment, the release of ego.
Yep. And also, as healers, like really understanding that we need to drop our agenda, and I might have an agenda as a healer that if I'm working with somebody who's really ill, that I have an agenda that they live as if living is better than dying. And I don't know. I mean, as a human being, I think that, but in the divine order of things, it might be divine timing for that person to leave, pass away. And so we can actually hold people back if you're like, you must live, that's not healing, that's hindering their process. We have to continually be aware of our agenda, release, let go of our agenda, and sort of like God's will be done, that, or the person that we're working with, their will be done. And we're here to support that. Watch out for hidden agendas that we might have.
It's a very clean type of energy in which you're more of a conduit. The energy flow is coming through you, so it's not like you're giving your energy to the other person. But there are some energy modalities that people have developed where they're giving their energy. You talk about a swap that takes place.
When we receive the Reiki attunement, so the attunement is the process by which the teacher permanently changes the student's energy field in a way that connects us with the Reiki frequency. The Reiki frequency is a frequency of unconditional love. It's like universal life force energy, which is actually how most people translate the word Reiki. They translate it into universal life force energy. It's a good enough translation. And when we're connected to that, we have sort of access to this never ending stream of this very pure life force energy. So like for a long time, I was doing 20, 25 clients a week, and I'd be really, really burned out if I was using my own energy. We have our own chi, our own life force energy. It's sort of like blood. We have a limited supply of it, and we can make more if we get enough rest. But I think it's hard. It takes time. And when we don't know Reiki, or we haven't had that attunement, and we're putting our hands in people, and I see this for people like, nurses, nail techs, hairdressers, anyone who's massage therapists. If you're sensitive and you're an empath and you're putting your hands on somebody, it's likely that your energy will flow into them, especially if they're at a lower, like you said, a hindered person, if they're at a lower vibrational frequency than you are, and they're going to feel great and you're going to feel terrible because you just swapped energy. You transferred energy. You gave them some of your good energy and you absorbed some of their less, vibrant energy, and they feel better and you feel terrible. And so anyone who's an empath or anyone who works hands-on with people can benefit tremendously by learning Reiki, so that I know if I'm seeing a whole bunch of clients and I'm going to put my hands on them, I'm connecting to the Reiki frequency and I'm filling myself, because Reiki fills us first with this beautiful life force, this universal energy. And then I'm flowing that through me like water through a pipe. And I don't know, there's so burnout, illness, depression, anxiety problems that we can just bypass when we learn that technique.
That's beautiful. And it really seems more freeing as well, because then you can step in and really be present with the individual without any of those additional burdens of protection and all of those things that a lot of people carry. Yet you do talk a little bit about clearing and protection. So when is that necessary if using Reiki?
I think everyone who's a sensitive should do energy clearing techniques as sort of the primary, the backbone of our sort of spiritual discipline, right? So it's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. I ground, clear, and protect myself. I do it before I do a Reiki session. I do it in between sessions. I do it at the end of my day. I do it as I'm sitting in the parking lot before I go into Costco. I do it halfway through Costco. I do it when I get out of Costco. So as needed, to be embodied, grounding is being embodied. Clearing is where I just use a breathing and visualization technique that, that I've honed down over many years. And we got to clear out the energy that we picked up that's not ours. And then we have to protect ourselves and really being inside our own energy bubble. So we can open psychically. We can live in the world as an empath. We can be of service to humanity because all empaths are here and sensitive. All psychics, healers, empaths are here to help other people. And yet it's really hard to do that if we don't really master these. It's like energetic hygiene. When we don't do that, we're just depressed, burned out, cranky, exhausted, sick, because we're constantly absorbing energy, the thoughts, feelings, energy, pain, physical pain from other people. When we don't know how to clear it out of our system and protect ourselves, it's just a recipe for disaster.
And that really is what conscious living means, because so often people want to be more conscious or they think they are living consciously. But if we are not approaching our different levels, if we're not truly checking in with ourselves in different moments of the day, then we're slipping into more of the unconscious than we really are the conscious. Yes?
Yeah, it's sort of like the very conversation we started with, while tuning into ourselves. Like for me, it's a matter of being like constantly aware of my own inner state, that how am I feeling? Am I in my body? Am I okay? Where are my thoughts? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, where am I at moment by moment, right? It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self-examination, a lot of inner awareness to live in that state. And especially because I believe that the outer world is a manifestation of our inner state of consciousness. It's almost like the best thing we can do for the world is keep our own state of inner consciousness as high as we can, as joyful, as high vibe, as happy, as kind to ourselves, living in a love, compassion, kindness, and awareness to ourselves. I feel like has a massive ripple effect in the world. We can't do much to change the outer world, but I can't anyway. But I know what I can do is keep my inner state of consciousness high. And that's like my contribution, plus the healing work I do. And we all, of course, impact people in so many ways, but I know it starts with my inner state of consciousness.
I echo that completely. And you talk about Reiki being a form of vibrational healing. You've said a few times that it is the frequency of unconditional love. And so as we engage in the higher vibrational states of ourselves, then we're coming into a different resonance of the world that we experience or the relationships that we attract.
Yeah.
Is all of that connected for people?
I think so. And I think that's really when people talk about the law of attraction, it's really the law of resonance, So whatever we're resonating, whatever we're vibrating, because of that these universal laws attracts to us. So like attracts like, and vibration attracts vibration. And that's why it takes work. So it's not about sort of sugarcoating or spiritually bypassing the heart, the pain, that doesn't work. So we need to kind of lean into the pain, do the inner work, do our inner work, get our own healing, be responsible for our work that we all need, which we all do. And when we do that, I spend like an hour every morning really working on myself, meditating, journaling, all doing my energy clearing technique until I get to a state, sort of a high joy vibration state. And I know if I spend the time, and sometimes it takes a lot, sometimes it takes 10 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour and a half. And I always give myself time in the morning for that. And when I hit that higher joy vibration, I seem to be able to maintain it through the day. And then my day, things unfold, it's sort of I feel like I'm in alignment with my higher self and soul aligned. And then there's like a magical flow of synchronicities and opportunities and beautiful moments. And if I don't do that, I'm just sort of stuck in my own inner mess, then I don't have a good day. And I get sort of I get mess in the outer world, right? So whatever we have to do, I feel like it's for me, it's my primary um objective is to do what I need to do to get into that higher state and then live from a state of flow from there. And that's amazing when we do it. But can't underestimate when I say how much work it takes, sort of constant moment by moment diligence to live in from that place.
But when I hear that and knowing the deepening practices that I continue to engage, to me, that is the service to the world.
That's right.
That if we heal ourselves, heal our own trauma, continually bring that presence to a space where we can be with all those parts of ourselves, that's
Yeah.
really the only way we can even be with this world in the way it is, again, without trying to control it, without trying to fix it, without trying to change it, but
Yes.
to hold it all in that place of unconditional love and reverence. For a person that is engaging in Reiki, in psychic Reiki, healing themselves and the topic of trauma, which is such a big topic right now.
Right now, my new book is called Sacred Reparenting, Spiritual and Intuitive Healing for Your Inner Child. And so my answer to that is inner child work. And I've been doing inner child work every day for 25 years. Going back into our childhoods and dealing with our, sometimes we have to repair, like self-repair, the trauma that we've been in. That usually requires we need to work with a therapist or a healer or a coach, to have body worker, to have like a team of people, especially if your trauma is really intense. So we have to self-repair. We have to self-care, just treat ourselves with, loving kindness throughout the day, not just once, not just one bubble bath, like as a part of our general routine. We have to learn how to self-soothe, how to regulate our nervous system, how to regulate our emotional system. And those things I think are the prime directive for healing trauma. And I don't think there's anything more important. I think it's so essential. And that's sort of the topic of my new book. And I'm looking at it through the lens of inner child healing.
And that really does have to be the focus. We can't look at a world that is in the pain it's in and not realize that it's reflecting something that we all must look at within ourselves. And it does start
Yeah.
in childhood, doesn't it? A lot of
Yeah.
these things, the beliefs, the feelings, the sensations, the emotions, the pains, they all start in those early years and sometimes even prenatally.
Prenatally, so we have or even past lives, if you believe in that. So sometimes we carry in things from other lifetimes, or we're holding the wounds of our family, the legacy wounds, ancestral wounds. And as we're children, we're getting downloaded with all of not only our own experiences, but holding the energetic, you know um, emotional, genetic, thought patterns of our family of origin, and our culture, the society we're living in. So there's a lot there's a lot of that. I always say, if I could have a magic wand, I would have everyone do inner child work and teach them how to regulate their nervous system and regulate their emotions. And I swear we'd have no problems. There'd be no war, there'd be no, starvation, there'd be no, and if everyone, then we put the world in the hands of the empaths and
Yes.
have them make all the decisions, that we would all just live in this incredible state of compassion, for our fellow humans and love. And that, my small part in trying to do that is to write this book about inner child healing. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm looking forward to having you back on for that conversation because I'm in full agreement. That is the work to do.
Yeah.
And you also write about empaths. You have a book that was the Cover Silver Visionary Award winner, Energy Healing for Empaths. And we all really are empaths to a certain degree. Some of us are very shut down, but we all
Yeah.
have this ability. Should we reclaim it or should we understand it if it's really strong. Talk a little bit about how energy healing works when you're really empathic.
Yeah. So when you're an empath, we just have a net. We're like psychic sponges. So we absorb the energy, the thoughts, emotions, physical sensations of other people. And it's a little different from like sympathy, which is like looking at somebody who's crying and be like, oh, that, that's sad. An empath is like, then they're crying. You sit next to somebody and they're crying, and then suddenly you're crying. You feel that pain as if it's yours. It's an incredibly beautiful gift. I feel like it's the tools of a healer. It's like having a built-in MRI, X-ray machine that is incredible to diagnostic tool. So as Reiki practitioners or just humans in the world, we can deeply understand like children, animals, plants, the pain and suffering of humanity, people who maybe don't have um such great ability to explain what they're experiencing. You don't have It's like that massage therapist who knows exactly where to put their hands because they know, because they, even though you don't say anything, they know because they feel it. So I think we're always meant to be healers. It feels like a terrible curse until we learn how to manage our energy. So going back to the basics of energetic hygiene, grounding, clearing, protecting, when I work with untrained empaths that are like on the couch watching Netflix with their cat because they can't leave their home, because the pain and suffering of the world is overwhelming to them. Other people's energy is overwhelming to them. Going to the supermarket floods them with everyone else's feelings and energy. And it's pretty bad. It can be, and the more sensitive you are, the more painful that is. However, it's not a hard fix. We need to work on our boundaries. We need to work on energetic boundaries and setting boundaries in every other way too. And when we do that, all of a sudden we can move through the world like, like boundary setting ninjas, and really um serve the way we were meant to serve. Like, for example, I had a Reiki student, super empath, and she felt super, super called to work in hospice, which I think is an incredibly beautiful calling. And she contacted me one day and she's like, I'm gonna have to quit. I I love doing hospice work, but when I come home, I can't get off the couch. I'm sick. My immune system is shot. My husband's like, ready to divorce me. I don't have any time for my kids. I'm gonna have to quit. And I was like, oh, let's not do that, because the world needs all the healers it can get. So what she just really needed to learn was how to manage her energy, how to clear herself how to protect herself, how to ground herself, all the things we've been talking about, so that she could hold up to that beautiful work that she has. And it's not hard to learn. Anyone can do it. And I talk about all the ways to do it in that book. And then she figured it out. She did the practices and went back to her fulfilling her mission here in a beautiful way. And she's helped a ton of people. So that's really what that book is about.
Beautiful. And it sounds like there's a thread of connection between empathic ability and psychic ability.
True. Yes. I've actually never met an empath that wasn't fully loaded with all the psychic gifts. So in general, empaths are highly intuitive and highly psychic. So I always recommend empaths learn Reiki because it helps us with all the things we talked about. And I also think if you want to develop your psychic gifts, it's a really good idea to do that. So empaths often need intuitive and psychic development training as well, so they can add these beautiful skills to their toolkit.
And in the book, you talk about the alpha brainwave state,
Mhm.
that's the place to get to really connect to that psychic ability and
Yeah.
open up to what that is. How relaxed, or how does someone get into that really relaxed state to touch alpha?
Yeah. And that's what professional psychics do. Professional psychics learn how to shift into the alpha brainwave state at will. So it's so when you got to do a session, you shift into the alpha brainwave, and when you're done, you shift out of it. And that's how we learn how to like have our psychic ability on when we've got clients, but off when we're in the supermarket, because that's not fun. And it's so simple. It's actually a very light, trancy, daydreamy state. We all go into it multiple times a day. And it can be as simple. I think the simple, like meditation works. guided meditation works. The simplest way to do it is to do something sort of repetitive with your hands. Wash the dishes, fold the laundry, shower. People get their best psychic hits in the shower. That's why we're in that light alpha state. And a really fun exercise anyone can try is write down a question in your journal. If you have a specific question you want an answer to, or what do I need to know right now, write it down, take a few breaths, go fold your laundry, go walk the dog, and do it quiet. Don't listen to anything. Don't listen to a podcast, or keep the noise quiet and just forget about the question. Go lie outside on the grass and watch the clouds go by. Sit at the ocean and watch the waves coming in. All of those things put us into that alpha brainwave state. And see what emerges. See what you feel, what you sense, what you know. Maybe something pops into your mind, kind of like an aha moment, like, oh, that's the answer to that. It's so simple and so graceful and so beautiful and such a powerful way anyone can do to access their most intuitive insights.
The more Reiki you do, the stronger your intuition and psychic ability will be, which in turn makes you a better Reiki practitioner. Lisa Campion is also a podcast host. Her show is called The Miracle of Healing, and she shares insights and tools for spiritual growth on that podcast. You can find out more at lisacampion.com. That link is in the bio description, along with her book. Do join my Substack. My publication is Beyond the Illusion, and you can find it at iamsimran1111.substack.com. That link is in the bio description. You'll actually receive all of the 1111 magazine issues on audio as part of that, in addition to the weekly prompt, inquiry, contemplation, and meditation that I provide to all of the subscribers on the annual membership. Thank you so much for spending time. Until next week, in love, of love, with love and as love, be well.
Thank you for opening your mind to a new reality, your heart to greater compassion, and your experience of aliveness with 1111 Talk Radio. Join host Simran next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time to step through the gateway of conscious living. You are not on the journey. You are the journey.